Hello everyone, this is Raj. Welcome to TechFerment. In the previous video, I have talked about Express.js, how we can create APIs with the help of Express. First, we need to install Express as a JavaScript module, and then we have installed .NET for defining an environment variable, and we have installed body parser as an NPM module for getting a data from the client, and then we have defined the environment variable configuration file, and then we have used this body parser, and then we have used this particular port number, and then we have defined the route. So here we have a route, and then we have around the things, and then we have a configuration file. So now I'll talk about uh, I'll just remove this one. Now I'll talk about middleware. What is a middleware? Middleware is a kind of functions which will work whenever the request goes to the server. So we can add some middleware. First, a request goes to the middleware, means a function, and middleware check. You can perform some actions, like you can check whether the request is valid or not. And when inside middleware, you can validate the content, and then you can go pass the request to the server. So you can use this middleware. So how we can create a middleware? So what I'll do here, I'll create a functions. So let's say I'll create a middleware. So let my middleware is logger. And how we can create a middleware? So inside this particular middleware, which will take three things. First one is request. So here what I'll do, I'll just copy the request as a string here, and then we have a response, and then we have a next, like after what to do. Okay, so we have a arrow functions, and here we can define the middleware. So now let's say I'll call console.log. So every time whenever we are calling the APIs, so this will give you the log hello API calling. Okay, or so I'll save this particular middleware, and then how we can use this particular middleware? So we have created this particular functions, and now we need to use app.use method. Inside you need to pass logger, and this will work as a middleware. So I'll go to the postman, and then I'll call the request. So I'll call this API, and I'm calling this API, and we are getting this particular data. But this request goes to the end time. This will not end, just because we haven't shared called the added the logic for the middlewares. Like after this middleware is completing this particular process, so we need to move to the next part. So we will use this particular path, and then once again we are calling this particular API. So we get the data, and then we have called the middleware. Okay, so this is how we can use the middleware. One of the best example for using this particular middleware, you can check or validate the APIs, like some of the APIs, let's say get API, delete API, add API, or update API will be authenticated. Only valid user can authenticated user can remove, add, or edit the content. So you can use middleware, and in the market there are a lot of middleware you can use. So I'll just comment this one, and in the market we have a lot of middlewares. Let's say Morgan. So Morgan is the topmost famous middleware for getting a log reports about the APIs. So you can use this particular module. So I'll just open this one, and then here we have a documentation. So I'll just copy this installation part, and I'll go to the VS Code editor, and then here we'll go to the new tab and then install Morgan. So I'll use -- save so that we can install this thing in particular project directory. So this is the documentation. So I'll go to the in the bottom. So here we have a documentations, like how we can use this particular middleware. So first we need to import this Morgan. So here we need to import the Morgan. So I'll write const Morgan, and then we need to use this one Morgan or here we have app.use combine thing. Yeah, yeah. So this one. So this is the documentation. So app.use Morgan and combine. So I'll just copy and I will paste it here for calling this middleware. So I'll just close this particular terminal, and whenever we are calling the API, we are getting the log report. So here we are getting this particular log report. So this is a get request, and this is a URL, and this is a HTTP. This will be the data 200 requests, and this is a client. Okay, so whenever we are calling another API, so this will give you the log report for another one. We are called get APIs, and this will be the path. And let's say I'll call add APIs, so post APIs. So we have a post APIs. So this is how we can use middleware. Now I'll talk about the cloud Firebase. So right now we have created API, but we haven't implemented the database part. So now I'll show you how we can use Cloud Firestore as a database, and we will create APIs. So what I'll do, first we need to install Firebase. So here you need to type the command npm install hyphen save Firebase. Okay, so this is the command you need to install Firebase, and then you need to go to the Firebase console. So I'll go to the Firebase console, and then here you can create a project. So I'll create a project Express API demo. Okay, so this is a demo project. So I'll click on the continue button, and then I will disable this particular Google Analytics part, and then click on create project. Yeah, my project is created. So I'll click on the continue button, and then we have a project dashboard. This is a project console. Now I'll click on the web button, and I will register my applications. So here you can pass the application name. So let's say I'll pass Express API demo, and then click on register application. Okay, then we have a console, and then we'll go to the project setting. Inside project setting, we'll scroll down to your application, and here we have a configuration file. So here we have a configuration file for this particular things. So first we have installed Firebase, so it's still installing, so we'll wait. So we have an index.js file here. What I'll do here, we'll write const Firebase require. So we'll use required as a method for importing the module. So we will use Firebase. Okay, and then we will copy this one, and I will paste here as a configuration file. So here, now we will initialize this application. So here we have a logic, so for initializing the application. So I'll just copy this one, and I will paste it here. Okay, so we have added the Firebase. Now we need to perform the queries. So first we will initialize the Cloud Firestore. So I'll go to the Firestore, and till now I have created the documentation for Firebase. So I will mention this URL in the video description section. So we have a Firebase for web as a series. So here you can go to the Cloud Firestore. So we have a Cloud Firestore. Inside we can run the queries. So like if you want to add a data, so this will be the query. Like first we are using Firebase, inside we are using Firestore, and we need to define the collections, from which collections you want to add the document. So you can use this way. So now we have we need to click on the Cloud Firestore, and then click on create database, and right now we'll work on test mode, and then click on enable, and yeah, enable. Okay, so this will enable the project. So now I'll go to this particular route. First, we need to import the Firebase. So I'll import this particular Firebase as a module here. And now we'll write a logic for add the data into the Firebase. So here we need to write the queries. So first we'll write Firebase, because Firebase we are using. Inside Firebase we are using Firestore. Inside Firestore we need to add the data on which particular collection. So we need to define the collection's name as projects, and then we need to use add method. Inside add you can pass this particular JavaScript object, and this will work as a JavaScript promises. Like if this particular content is added into the cloud file store, this will give you the promise, and this will give you the documents. Okay, and if there is any issue, so we can get the error in the catch block, and here we are getting the error. So like if the project data is successfully added, so here you can pass the project. Okay, now here we can write success is equal to true and data added, and here you can mention project added with doc id is, here you can get the doc id. How you can get the doc id? Doc.id. Here we have a documentations. Like once we call this particular query, so it will work as a JavaScript promises, so we can handle with the help of then and catch block, and this will give you the document, and you can print the id doc.id. Okay, and if you are getting any issues, so we can handle with the help of catch block. So we have a catch block, and here we can pass the error related status is 400, success is equal to false, and then we can print the error. So here I'll write e, because which is coming from here, and here you can pass the message. Okay, so we have written a simple query for adding a data into the cloud file store. So I'll go to the postman, and then we have a query for adding a data. So I'm adding this particular data, so I'll call this API. I'll call this particular button, and then this will say project added with doc id, this one. So I'll go to the Firestore, I'll just reload the page, or you can switch to the new another tab. Then we have a projects, and then we have a collections, and then we have this particular data. So I'll add another data, let's say project 2 description 2, and I'll call send APIs, and then we have another document. So here actually my internet is not properly working, so we have two documents. So this one is for project 2 description 2. Okay, so now I'll write a logic for collecting all the data from the collections. So the logic will be same. So I'll go to the documentation first. So this is a documentation for read all the documents. So here we are using this particular query in Firebase, Firestore, collections, and then get. Okay, so I'll just copy this one. My collections name is projects, and then we'll use that get method, and then this will work as a JavaScript promises. So this will give you the list of documents. Here we have a list of documents. Here you can apply for each, and this will give you one by one document. Okay, now what I'll do here, you can define the projects. So here we have a projects as a blank array, and here we are getting one by one documents. So what I'll do, I'll add project dot push, and then we can push the data. So what I'll do here, we have a JavaScript how we can get the data. So we have a doc.data as a this one, and we'll use spread operator, like we can merge two object, and here we can merge another object. So I'll merge another object is doc id. So here we have a doc id, so I'll add doc.id. Okay, so this is the syntax, and then if this logic is successfully done, so we can here add this one, response dot on, and here we can pass the projects. Okay, this one is array. If there is any issue, so we can handle with the help of catch block, and here we are getting error. So we will use same code, same syntax for the error. So I'll just copy this one, and I will pass here. Okay, so this logic is done for getting all the projects. So I'll call the APIs. So I'll go to the get all projects, I'll click on this one, and then this will give you the data. So we have a data, and then we have a two documents. So these two documents are here. Okay, so next part is for getting the single data from specific document. So we have a document ID is given. So we will call this particular logic. So I'll just copy here and I'll go to the document here. So I'll write here. So we are using Firebase. Inside Firebase, we are using Firestore. Then we have a collections. My collections name is projects. And then here we need to define doc ID. So doc ID is coming from this particular request. So I'll pass this particular request. And this will work as a JavaScript promises. So if this particular promise is successfully resolved, so we will get the document. Here we have a document, and here you can get the data, pass the document. So how we can pass the document? So here I'll write .3 doc data for getting the data, and then here it's okay, you can directly pass. So totally up to you. I'll write logic here. Okay, so if this queries is not able to call successfully, means rejected, so we can handle with the help of catch block, and then we have a syntax, same syntax. So I'll just pass here. Okay, so we have a doc ID. So I'll want to collect this particular ID. So I'll go to the another API. This is a get API. So here I will pass the ID. Okay, and then I'll call this API, and then we are getting the data whose ID is document ID is this one. Okay, so here similarly we have a this one ID. I want to read the data from this particular doc ID. So in the URL I will pass here, and then we are getting this particular data. Okay, so next part we did three things. Like first we write a logic for the get all project. Second one is for get single project, and for adding a projects. Now we'll write a logic for updating a project. So we have a documentation for update. So we have a doc ID, and then we have updated data. So we'll call this part Firebase Firestore collections, and then this which document, and then we need to call this particular things. So I'll just copy, and we have a logic for here. So we have a Firebase Firestore collections. My collections name is projects. So I'll write projects here. And what will be the doc ID? So doc ID will be coming from the URL. So request.params.id, and then we have updated data. So this is updated data, and this will work as a JavaScript promises. So we can handle with the help of get then and catch block. So here we are getting the blank, let's say object. Here we can pass this one. Okay, so project data updated whose ID this one, and here if there's any issue, so we can handle with the catch block. So here we can print the error. So we will use same logic, same structure for catching the error. I'll comment. So this one is done. So what I'll do, I'll just go to the Postman. First I'll call the API for get all projects. So we are getting these two projects. So I want to update this particular project data. So this is a project ID. So I'll go to the put request of updating. So here we have a ID, and then we'll go to the body, and then we have a raw, and then JSON. Here we'll add project one. So I'll call this API, and then yeah, project updated. So I'll call another API once time, and then this will be the project name one. So I'll just call this API once again, and then we have a name updated. Okay, now the next part is I want to delete the data from the document. So we have a doc ID. So we have a logic Firebase, Firestore, collections, and then document, and then we need to call then delete. So I'll go to the VS Code editor, and then I'll write a logic. So here we have a logic. So this one is projects as a collections name, and the ID will be require this one, and then this will work as a JavaScript promise, and this will give you the callback. Here you can mention. Okay, so project remove whose ID this one, and then you can catch the error. So here you can pass. Okay, so now we have created a REST APIs with the help of Firebase. So I'll go to the Postman. Let's say I want to remove the this project name too. So this is the ID. So I'll go to the delete request. I will pass the URL here, and then send. Okay, so this API has removed the date project whose ID is this one. So here in the Cloud Firestore, we have a data and we are performing the actions with the help of this particular APIs. So you can create a simple REST API. So like we have implemented the logic, like we have in this video, like first we have used middleware as a Morgan, and then we have created a project on Firebase and then just copy the code configuration code and install Firebase npm module and then connect the Firebase, and then we have performed the logic for the Firebase. So you can create another REST API. So you just need to create another route for, let's say, for the users. So you can do that users.js, and then you can copy entire one and you can pass and you can change the URL. Okay, so here will be URL will be different, and then here you need to import the user one. So I'll just, here you need to copy and then you need to pass here, and then you need to copy and the pass here and change the name parameters, and that's it. So you can create a separate API for the users. So that's all from my end. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video. Next video I'll talk about how we can connect the MongoDB database, and yeah, see you in the next video.